Hello, hello.
How's it going?
Going well. How are you?
Hanging in there, man.
Great. Had another fun night of
Hanging.
no sleep, so I feel you.
Yeah, yeah. And I won't be on the call Tuesday, just an FYI. My apologies.
No worries. Is that any of our meetings or just the all hands?
No, no, no. Just the 4 o'clock one.
Got it.
Three o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever you got it scheduled.
Yeah, the afternoon one. Got it.
Yes,
Cool.
sir.
Well, awesome. Tish, I see you on. No worries if you are in a position where you can't talk, but I appreciate you joining. So today's our fight call. I'm just going to jump into it, be respectful of everybody's time. Um, So just some red tape stuff, some admin stuff. Portal's free, so it's open. So invite whoever you want. Um, I'm a big proponent on those that belong will stay, and those that don't will find their way out. And there's nothing that we need to change about ourselves for that. And so I had a couple people reach out and ask who should I invite, who should be a part of it, so on and so forth. And anyone and everyone, they'll find their way in or they'll find their way out. It's kind of the whole ethos behind heroes in general is like just do you, and the people that matter will resonate and the people that don't matter will find their way out. It's just it's been 100% true my entire life. Anytime you try and cultivate yourself to keep people around, it just makes really bad relationships, and you don't want that. um we also have you know what, I just realized we haven't scheduled March's Sovereign soirees or any of the live events. I think I might just do an Axes and Nails, and anybody that wants to show up and sling some steel with me can, and I'll just be there anyway. And that's just a good night for me. So um, I'll put that out in the portal here soon. We got a couple of axe throwing places around the area that I can host it at. That some are the ones that we normally do. And I think there's a new one, Tish. I think there's a new one that we might want to try.
I'm up for it. I mean, there's lots of them. There's also that Smash place we talked about that I don't know if you, I don't remember your opinion on that, but
Oh yeah, we could go break stuff.
we could go break stuff. And one of the gentlemen that we mutually know from the gym actually owns it, runs it. So we
Oh,
chatted and he was like, 100% would love to have you guys come out. So maybe we do that. It's the one over in Carmichael.
in Carmichael.
Yeah. And I don't know what it's called, but it's it's a smash room. You go in and
You break stuff.
break stuff. It's
Good
stuff
with
with a
it.
bat. I don't know.
Maybe that's what we do in March. We call it
Maybe
spring cleaning. Get the frustrations out.
get the cobwebs out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll look into it.
Okay. Thank you. And then we do have Sovereign Swanman coming up June 22nd through the 25th in Texas. So if you haven't got your registration there, we are going to be closing registration soon. So if you haven't got your registration, please get that in as soon as possible so that we know how many people to expect. There's still some VIP tickets left. Yeah, I think that's all the bureaucratic nonsense that I have to do as CEO that I don't like doing. But let's talk about the stuff I do like doing, which is helping you guys live more sovereign lives. So today's fight, and we had a little bit of discussion about like, what do we want to do? Do we want to go into, preparedness? Do we want to go into, some of the more like actual fight stuff, martial arts and things like that. And I've been thinking on it for a couple days, and there's something that just keeps echoing in my mind. And that's this idea of part of fight is being responsible for your own safety. And more than that, like when we're sovereign, I get this a lot. I hear this a lot. Like people believe that sovereignty, freedom is fucking Mai Tais on a beach all day long and thinking that they don't have any cares in the world, no responsibilities, no nothing. And that is the quickest way to end up a slave. Like it is absolutely the quickest way to end up a slave. When you don't take ownership of personal responsibility for your safety, for your livelihood, for your personal sovereignty, your family sovereignty, that's how people end up in dead-end jobs that they absolutely hate because they have to, right? Because they thought that freedom is just effing off. Well, the bottom line is it doesn't matter if it's business, it doesn't matter if it's finance, it doesn't matter if it's your family. Like if you just fuck off with no discipline, eventually it's going to disappear. You spend money without any boundaries, you're going to run out of money. It doesn't matter how much money you're making. Like if you treat people as if they're never going to leave, you're going to lose them. That's just the way it is. And so when we're talking about like sovereignty, we're talking about fight and survival. Part of that is understanding the necessity of discipline, understanding self-discipline. And, you know, I've heard this a lot, and it's kind of cliche, but it also is true, is like, you can either suffer the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And I can tell you from experience, the pain of regret is 100 times worse than the pain of discipline. Like Matt will tell you, Tish will tell you, we go to the gym, we're athletes in our own right. Matt's a bodybuilder, Tish is a power lifter. I'm in the middle, right? Like I want to look like I can do some shit, but I don't need to be 6% body fat. And I want to lift some heavy shit, but I don't need to be picking up 800 pounds. Like I'm right in the middle. And so the reality is, the discipline is, I don't want to be there all the time. I don't. Like half the time I'm like, I was mentioned at the beginning of this call, I didn't sleep. I haven't slept in 4 days, like maybe a couple hours here or there. My mind's just really loud right now, and that's okay. So when I go into the gym and I go to lift some stuff, I have to recognize that, one, I don't want to be here, but not being here at all is going to be worse for my brain, because I'm not going to expend that energy. I'm not going to get the mental release. That's going to ensure I stay awake. But I also have to understand that I haven't slept in 4 days. And so when I go to lift that weight, I'm going to be fucking tired, and I'm going to have a higher risk of injury. I'm going to have a higher risk of complications. I'm going to have a higher chance that I'm going to ego lift, because I normally lift this much and I'm so tired I can't lift that much, but I'm going to try, hence the injury. And so the discipline side of that is recognizing all of those things, right? It isn't just like, oh, well, I lifted, 200 pounds last week, and therefore now with no sleep, no food, low water, probably on the verge of being sick, immune system being compromised, I'm going to walk in and lift another 200 pounds. Like, it doesn't work, right? So you have to be disciplined, not just on the side of action, you have to be disciplined in the recovery. And so, when I talk about fight, a lot of times I say fight and it's meant to evoke a specific emotion, right? I say fight because a lot of people think violence. Violence creates either aggression or anxiety, depending on what side of the fence you fall on. But no matter what, those two emotions will create change. And so when I say fight, I expect people to kind of be like, oh, whoa, man, like calm down. Like, this is a civilized world. It's like, yes, but if you're thinking about what it would take to win against me, then you're thinking about something you need to improve. Because I can guarantee you that I'm not going to quit if it's me or you. I'm going to win. And so what that does is it drives me to be more disciplined about, what am I capable of, right? If I have to run 3 miles, am I capable of running 3 miles? I don't know, maybe. So I test it, take the dog out and we test it, right? Can I lift 500 pounds? No. The likelihood I'm going to need to lift 500 pounds, pretty low. But the likelihood of having to pick up 180 pounds, because the average human body is about 180 pounds, that's pretty high. Maybe you got in a car accident, maybe there's a fire, maybe somebody's passed out and you need to get them out of danger. That's a pretty high level of chance that you may have to lift that much weight. Now, the likelihood is most people, especially in our insulated world, they don't go through life thinking, next week I'm going to come upon a car crash. I'm going to have to pull somebody out of a burning car in the hopes that they don't end up burned to death. Most people don't think like that. I do, because I take it as a responsibility that if I'm going to be there for my people, it isn't, well, I make good money, so I can just sit on my ass and drink beer all day and fucking watch the game, or sit down and play video games all fucking day. That is me indulging to the level of detriment. And so when we talk about sovereignty, a lot of times when I talk about sovereignty, people are like, I want to be able to do whatever I want. Cool. To what extent? Right? A lot of people's American dream is sitting on the beach drinking fucking pina coladas all day long for months on end and never having to work again, right? Well, what does that get you? Get you sunburnt, hungover, sick, shriveled, cancer most likely, because you've spent that much time drinking shit and sitting in the sun. So the reality is that really a feasible sovereign life? No, it's fucking not, right? You want to be functional, right? I always think about South Park from back in the early 2000s with the fat kid playing video games in his mom's basement, yelling up at his mom for a pot pie. Like, that's how some people view freedom. But they can't leave the chair. So is that really freedom? You're just choosing a different slavery, right? And Matt and I have talked about this because we get onto the politics side of the house. Like, choosing which boot leather you like more to kiss is not the same as being free. And a lot of people think it is. I like this master with his hand on my leash more than that master with his hand on my leash. And I'm okay with this guy telling me what to do and how to live and all this stuff. It's like, it's not the same. And the only way you can shirk that chain and you can get away from it is having the discipline to know what you're responsible for, having the discipline to know what utility you care about, right? And I'm not saying it's the same for everybody, right? Like, I grew up a warrior. My family have been a series of men warriors. They've all been military. I grew up in the hood. Gang warfare was just kind of life, right? Getting jumped was just normal. So for me, the utility of a fight is very real versus you have somebody who grew up in suburbia. Their dad probably drank themselves into a stupor every night watching the football game. The most exercise that they saw their dad do was when he was getting mad at the TV because the ref made a shitty call, right? Then the utility of exercise is not the same for somebody with that perspective. However, the great equalizer is the minute you need it and you don't have it, you'll find out what utility has, right? And so when you talk about discipline, you talk about being sovereign, you talk about like taking responsibility for things. And I'm a little bit more aggressive with parents with this, right? Like I'm like, your responsibility is no longer to indulge in what you desire. Your responsibility is to indulge in what you hope that that child will desire, right? And what I mean by that is like, if I wake up every day and I go to work and I ignore my kid and then I come home and the first thing I do is crack open a bottle of wine or crack open a beer and I tell the kid, don't drink, kid, but I'm drinking every night, like your need to indulge, you've now just proven to this kid, when I become an adult, I can do the thing that I'm not supposed to do. But you don't take the time to explain why it is you feel you desire to do that, right? Like the number one issue I feel with a lack of self-discipline, especially from parents, but in adults in general, is I'm an adult, I can make my own choices. Great. Have you thought about the consequence of that? Have you thought about what that impacts your children? Have you thought about what that impacts on your partner? Like me personally, I recently took up smoking cheroots, which are small cigars. I enjoy them. I like having a smoke. And I like them a little too much, to the point where I've talked to this team about it. I worry I'm addicted to them because I'll be sitting there and I'll be like, you know what? I want to go have a smoke. Now, for me, I don't like addiction. I've watched it tear apart families. I've watched it tear apart my own families. I've watched it cause too much control points for other people. Because when you're addicted, the minute that addiction gets taken away from you, now somebody has a point to control you with. Hey, if you do X, I'll give you Y. I'll give you your addiction, right? This is one of the biggest ones right here. This phone. Dopamine addiction is real. Parents use it to control their kids. Governments use it to control their people. We'll shut down your phone if you don't comply. Well, if you're addicted to it, that's a problem. But if you're not addicted to it, who gives a shit? Right? So I have to have that conversation from my own personal responsibility. Is like, I like them. I can indulge in them. I enjoyed smoking cheroots. I like the smell of them. It reminds me of my grandfather because he smoked his whole life. But consequences are cancer, low cardiovascular health or lower cardiovascular health, early death. I may stink, right? Like I got to think about like the impact it has on my family. Like they got to be around me, right? So maybe I don't indulge as much because I care more about the utility of my life than enjoying a smoke. And the same thing could be applied to sugar, alcohol, fatty foods, right? Like if I eat cheese and then I'm on the toilet for 3 hours, is the utility of me eating cheese really healthy for me? Probably not, because I just lost 3 hours of my life because I decided to eat two ounces of cheese or whatever, right? Like you have to find the responsibility for yourself to say, what am I willing to, and I know Matt and we talk about like sacrifice, like it isn't really sacrifice. Like, what am I willing to choose over something else? Because something has to be given up, but it's a choice. It's not a sacrifice. Sacrifice creates resentment. Choice is responsibility. And so that's why Matt and I have agreed for a long time. Like we don't use the word sacrifice. We use the word choice. It is our choice. If I choose to have that cheese and then end up on the toilet for 3 hours, I chose that. That is the outcome. It's quite literally and figuratively a shitty outcome, but it is an outcome that I chose, right? The problem is, and I've talked about this too, especially in the survival mechanism, right? When it comes to taking responsibility, people have conflated their whys with their whats. They've conflated why they are the way they are as a reason that they can't overcome it because it's a what, it's a thing, it's a definition, it's a definitive state of being, rather than something they could just choose not to do, right? If I didn't want to be on the toilet for 3 hours, I just don't eat that cheese, right? But instead people go, well, I'm lactose intolerant, so that's just what I have to deal with. It's like, well, yeah, you could. That's your choice. Or you could just not eat the cheese. Or in most cases, most people just have enzymatic problems, and this is getting into the science of nutrition a little bit. Take a probiotic and you'd probably be fine. Eat more vegetables with the cheese, you'd probably be fine, right? But we look at things in society today as it's somebody else's problem. It's some other person's fault, right? Greatest example of this is the cops, right? Is police. People don't want masculine, violent men, but they have no problem calling a masculine, violent man with a gun when they don't want to do the dirty work of getting violent themselves. See, I don't give a shit of what cops do, because if a cop shows up at my house and he wants to do something dirty with me, I'm going to whoop his ass. But that's because I've trained myself to say what my line is, what my principles are, what I'm willing to do, what I'm not willing to do, right? Whereas everybody else has trained themselves, well, he's a person, he's an official person, so I can't do that. They've trained themselves, I can't do that, because I sit on my ass all day playing video games and watching the football games. I haven't trained like he has trained. So I'm not even in a position to risk that choice, right? I am. I place myself, I take responsibility for placing myself in a position to where if I want to risk it, I'm going to risk it and I'm going to go all in. And I joke with people closest to me quite often, they haven't found a way to kill me yet. And the truth is, I've gone through hell on this earth in the time that I've been here, and I'm still standing, I'm still walking, I'm still talking, I'm still doing what I need to do. And that's not to be arrogant. It's just to know the reality of, like, I'm not made of glass. I've gotten my jaw broken. I've had my nose broken. I've had bones broken. I've gotten fights where I got knocked out. I've had concussions, like, still walking. So if somebody comes to tell me that they want to push their will on me, I have two choices. Either ignore the utility and responsibility to push my will on the world, or take up the responsibility that if I want my will on the world, I have to be able to back it up. I have to be able to stand there and say, nope, not today. Your will is X, my will is Y, and I can guarantee you, unless I'm dead, it's going to be Y. That's the way I see the world. That's how masculine men see the world. Now, that isn't to say that I'm immovable. That isn't to say that I'm inflexible. It's not to say that I won't make compromises, especially for women. I'm not going to walk up and be like, my will is the world, and then slap them. Like, that's just not how I work. You have to honor women. But if another man comes to tell me what he believes I should be doing or shouldn't be doing, he better be ready to back it up, because only I get to decide what I choose to do or not do. I choose to follow the law, not from fear of the law, but because I choose that I don't want the outcome. But I talk about this a lot, and this is getting in more of the ideological space of survival, is like, never mistake legal for moral. It was once legal to own slaves. It was once legal to bar people from doing certain things. It was once legal to tell women to sit down, shut up, and don't read because education was a problem. Like, it was once legal to do all that stuff. That doesn't mean it was moral. So if you have a moral proclivity for things, you have a responsibility to make sure that you're capable of influencing that space. Now, that could be financial, that could be physical, that could be mental, that could be spiritual, like whatever that is for you. If you want to be sovereign, you have to take responsibility of owning that and realizing as a bigger picture, like, what are you willing to choose for your life? I've had this conversation during the pandemic with the whole thing. Guys sitting there telling me, can you believe these politicians? They're just selling our country. Yeah, I do. Because they're getting offered 12 million and you won't stop complying for 30 grand salary. So you won't make a decision on moral grounds and principle for 30 grand, but you want to chastise them for breaking your moral and principle grounds for 12 million. It doesn't check, bro. It's not the same. So if you want to be responsible and you want to live a life that you want to own, then you have to look at it through that veil. You have to look at it through that lens of like, what am I willing to choose over that? Matt and I and Tish, like we talk about all the time, we're completely content throwing this out the window, finding a plot of land, and hanging out with no internet and no electricity forever. We don't mind because we'll figure it out. I know how to build generators, so does Matt. Tish knows how to make a warm hearth. Like, we'd be fine. We don't need all that stuff. We're very minimal when it comes to that stuff. But we also understand that it is a nice life to have HVAC, right? Like, we like power. It's nice. It's nice to be warm without having to fucking build a fire every morning. So we make choices, right? We choose to go along with these things that we don't like because it's easier. But at some point, you have to take responsibility. Like, am I doing this because it's easier? Or am I doing it because it's right? And that's part of survival. That's part of fight. That's part of the whole impetus behind sovereignty for me is found in the fight pillar. Because if you keep going down the line, at some point, it's going to be physical for you. Right? We talk about this a lot, is like, or I hear this talked about a lot, is like, why do I have to pay to exist? You don't. If you want to hunt, find shelter, get food every day. If you want to deal with the elements, be nomadic, move with the packs of animals that migrate, make your own weapons, make your own food collection systems, find your own way of making pots and pans. You don't have to pay to live. But you have to pay to live luxuriously. Simply go down to the store. You can grab a piece of cow, take it home. You turn on the oven. You throw it on a pan. You're eating in 20 minutes. That's what you pay for. That isn't to say that if all society breaks down, would you still live? Most people, I'd say no, because they don't take that responsibility. They're just like, I could just go down to the grocery store. I could just turn on the light. I could just jump in my car and do this thing. Cool, for now. But if your entire utility exists because society allows it, are you really sovereign? I argue no. See, my whole thing is my sovereignty is here. It's right here. Nobody can take it from me. Nobody can tell me anything. And that's the thing, is like, I don't need government to tell me. I don't need people to tell me. I don't need a job. I don't need business. If collapse of the society happened right now, I'd be good. I don't know how to hunt, track, clean, and set up my food. From that food, I will get tools. I will get warmth. I will get clothes. I know how to do all that. Why? Because I made sure I know how to do that. And I was lucky enough to have men who said, hey, if you want to be free, you need these base skills. You have a responsibility to have this in your back pocket because it will govern every choice you make from then. Because the minute that you require government assistance to survive is the minute you're a slave. My dad and my grandpa told me that from day one. Now, this isn't a political conversation, this is a sovereignty conversation, but they go hand in hand. I cringed yesterday when I heard somebody say that these are elected leaders. You have to understand something. Leaders give direction. Leaders tell you where they're going to do, what they're going to do, and where they're going to go, and you can follow. These are not elected leaders. They are supposed to do our will. They are elected officials who are there as proxy for our will. The idea that we have elected leaders is one of the number one faux pas in language that is causing so many people issues with finding sovereignty, because they are not leaders in their own life. They believe they go down to a booth and they put a little dot on a thing, and now they have a new leader. And that leader is going to tell them where to eat and how to live and what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do. I don't believe that. I go down there and I put a little dot on the thing and I said, you better do as I say, or I'll make sure you end up somewhere else. You do not lead me, I lead you. Now, I compromise and say, I will go the way of the majority. So if the majority says, you know, everybody's going to have to wear whatever, I will make a choice. I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't, but I would make a choice maybe to be like, yeah, okay, that's what the majority wants. Okay, do it. But the idea that they lead me, that they're going to come to my house and tell me in my little box, this is the way you need to do something. No, sir. And I'm grateful for the last few years because you're seeing an awakening of humanity not wanting that, turning the little box off, taking ownership of their children's education, taking ownership of their own lives, taking ownership of what they consume and what they believe. That's an important thing. But I'm also finding that most people are ill-equipped to handle it because there is a fallout. If you want to teach your child, you're going to get frustrated. If you don't want the government in your back pocket, you're going to get frustrated because they're there already. I have a 9-to-5 and I keep it for a reason. And nothing frustrates me more than watching 48% of my check go out the window every time. 48%. You have to understand what that means is that for 48% of my life, I'm a slave. Because what I earn is not mine. The hours that I put, if I put 100 hours, 48 hours of those, I go unpaid. We call that indentured servitude. And it frustrates me to no end. Now, I believe in taxes, mostly local, though. Because with a local tax system, you can make sure the roads are nice. You can make sure the area is clean. You can make sure that the schools have what they need. But when you start getting to federal taxation, and again, I'm getting political, you're voting for servitude. Because that money doesn't go to you. It goes where? Men without terms? Politicians that are your elected leaders that are going to tell you how to live? That's bullshit to me. I choose to pay it because 48% of or 52% of something is better than 0% of nothing. Because Wesley Snipes found that out. Don't play the racketeering game with them and they'll put you in jail. You don't get to work. It's the biggest load of fucking extortion I've ever heard. But the reason I bring this up is because one of the things that drives me nuts is how many men specifically and women talk a big game. They want to be hustlers. They want to be entrepreneurs. They want to be free. I'm a free man. But then when it comes down to making a choice that a free man needs to make, all of a sudden, yes, master, I do what you want, master. Whatever you want. And some people see what I just did as racist, but that's because you're a racist and you think that that's a black person. No, that's a slave. And it ain't black, it ain't white, it ain't Hispanic. That's a slave. That's somebody who fears the whip more than freedom. I'm against that on all colors, on all people. Anybody that knows me for more than 5 minutes knows that. I want you free. Because I will tell you right now, the greatest things that society has ever created has come from free men. Men who make choices based on what is best for their people, not what is best for their fears. Part of surviving, part of thriving is ownership and tenacity and courage. Something that our society has long since lost because they can just call the cops. So far, that people will vote for legislation not realizing what you're voting is for a man with a gun to come to somebody's house and take their children from them. You're okay with that. You're okay with the ideology that you deserve to force your ideology on other people through force. And I've had this conversation with a number of people and they're like, well, no, it's just a piece of paper. You just get a ticket. And I was like, and if I refuse to pay it, you get another ticket, a bigger ticket. And if I refuse to pay that, you go to jail, right? And how do they get me to jail? Show up at my house with a man with a gun because I didn't want to follow your edict. See, the Wild West was won with guns. And you can sit there and you can bitch about, oh, the Native Americans this and white people that and blah, 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 blah. But the reality is the Wild West was a group of people who wanted their ideology to persist, and some lost and some won. But at the end of the day, it was a bunch of people going, not here. And I will fight till I die to make sure it doesn't happen.
The American dream, the outlaw culture that America was founded on, is lost in bubble wrap and niceties. And it frustrates me because I'm watching a bunch of people think they're better than others that couldn't survive outside of this culture, where the truth is hurtful and considered violence because it makes your feelings hurt. Nature doesn't give two fucks about your feelings. The world doesn't give two fucks about your feelings. Evil men don't give two fucks about your feelings. They care about one thing: outcomes. At the end of whatever it is you're doing, will you still be standing or not? Will you still be breathing or not? Will you be warm or not? Will you be fed or not? That's all it cares about. And in a world of niceties and bubble wrap, we've lost that. And we've empowered it. We've told people it's okay to be weak. In fact, we're going to celebrate you for being weak, mentally, spiritually, physically. But in the real world, you would die. If you're not insulated, you would die. You don't know where to find food, water, shelter, heat, you would die. And this entitlement that we have garners so much apathy. And to bring this all home, that's where your responsibility is, to avoid that apathy. These self-indulgent behaviors where, you know, I like video games. I like watching sports. But my shit is done before I begin. If the choice was, do I play video games or play with my kid? It would be my kid. If the choice is doing what's right by my child and my child liking me, it'll be by what's right by my child. Choices are your responsibility, and those outcomes are the only thing that matters. And if you don't like the outcome, make a different choice. It's that fucking simple. It's not easy. A lot of times the simple things are the hardest fucking things. But the bottom line is, if you truly want to be sovereign, you truly want to be free, you need to stop this boohoo bullshit about victimhood and blaming other people and my upbringing this and my skin color that and blah, 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 blah. Nature don't give a fuck. The world don't care. What they care about is outcomes. You are just another mammal on this planet. And if you think you're somehow special because you live in a bigger house than some other dude or drive a nicer car from some other woman, or sadly mistaken. Sadly mistaken. And I deal with this on a regular basis because I don't give two fucks about stuff. I care about the utility of stuff. Why would I spend $100,000 on a car that sits in my driveway? To look cool for you? To what does that serve me? Now, I have my own wants. I like nice cars. But I would never pay $100,000 for a car that's just going to sit there. Unless I can take that money and do something else with it. If everything else is squared away, if all my responsibilities are handled, then I'll go spend $100,000 on a car. But I'm watching people go broke by acting rich. It's the stupidest thing in the planet to me. They got the Armani suits and the nice watches and the $100,000 cars. And their check bounces for groceries. The kids are hungry. Don't worry. They're driving a Mercedes. It's the stupidest shit in the world to me. And I'm frustrated because there's so many people that are just like, that's just the way it is. It's not the way it is. It's the way you choose to be. So my challenge to everybody is, if you're looking at your life right now and you're making fucking excuses, knock it off. Find your ownership. Find your responsibility. And start acting to that. Stop acting on your feelings. Stop acting on like your desire, like your like whims and desires. Until you've handled your responsibilities, It's all just, I don't even know the word. Like, it's just a metaphor for just a shitty life. You're going to end up unfulfilled and broken and weak and scared. I've watched it 1,000 times. I've watched it 1,000 times. So many people have gone down that road. I just want to be happy. Stop trying to be happy. Start trying to be fucking useful. Happiness is a myth. If you ever want to know why happiness is a myth, ask anyone to define it. You can't. It doesn't exist. It's not real. It's different for every fucking person on the planet. But I can tell you this, I've never met a useless happy person. Never once. The happiest people I know serve their families, serve their people, bring a lot of use to the table. Every man that I know that is pissed off, depressed, suicidal, it's because they've lost their usefulness. They don't see their purpose anymore. Stop trying to be happy. Start trying to be useful. Start trying to have a purpose. That's important. Being happy is a byproduct. It isn't the goal. Right? I recently heard a thing about marriage that said most people look at marriage as the end of the race, the win. When marriage is the start of the marathon. Getting married is the start. Everything up to that is training. It's the same thing with life. Everybody thinks happiness is the goal. No, happiness is a byproduct of the training, of going through life and finding purpose and usefulness. And this has been echoed in Bibles, in pagan religions. This has been echoed in societies since the beginning of time. When you seek happiness, you will be miserable and depressed. When you seek purpose, you will find happiness. That is my challenge to you. Stop making excuses and go be fucking useful. And I can guarantee you your life will be better. And serve without expectation. Serve without expectation. So many people serve hoping to get something on the back end, and then they create their own misery. That's what I wanted to talk about. That's what was on my heart. It's just part of fight, part of survival, part of sovereignty is just being useful and owning it. And if you're not useful and you like that, this probably isn't the group for you. Because I measure people on usefulness. Because if you're not useful, you're useless. And that hurts people's feelings, but that is definitively true. I heard a Kevin Gates, he's a rapper, but he's very wise. He said, use me, but don't abuse me. I want to be useful. I want to be used. But relationships are reciprocity. If you're useless and you're using me, then you're a leech. But if you're useful and I'm useful, that's a functional relationship. And that doesn't matter if it's business, platonic, romantic, familial, it doesn't matter. Be useful. Serve each other. That's what this community, Heroes Veritas, was founded on, serving each other, being useful to each other. I don't know what your use is. Do you? Have you explored it? Because the reason Matt and Tish and I click so well and have built this company is because we've explored it. Not just for ourselves, but for each other. What can I do for you? We know our usefulness, and sometimes we need reminding, which is also why we're in a group. Because sometimes we do need a reminding. Because the thing about chasing usefulness and chasing purpose is sometimes you get lost in the process. And you need people to kind of pull you back and remind you where you've gone. That's also part of the community. Get out there and be useful, guys. Guarantee you'll be a far cry from where you're at. If you're miserable, depressed, sad, whatever, you go try and be useful, that shit'll stop real fucking quick. You won't have time. You won't have time. You'll be useful. And some people want to get into the thing about, well, what's my use? What's my purpose? You won't know till you try it. I don't give a fuck if it's mopping the floor, doing the dishes for somebody, dropping somebody at their front, something at their front door because you know they're sad or sick. Giving a few bucks to just a random fucking person. I don't know what it is. Build something, make something, talk to somebody. I don't know. Everybody's got a different use. But if you seek your usefulness, I can guarantee you a lot of the other problems go right the fuck away. You don't have time. Outcomes matter. Feelings are passing at best. They'll disappear. The sun comes out. I guarantee you. Purpose doesn't go away. Usefulness doesn't go away. That's how I get out of my darkness. I don't get complacent. I go be useful. I serve. Right? A lot of my friends are like, I know you're going through it, but I could really use some help. Fuck yeah. When I'm going through it, the best thing I can do is serve my people. When I'm in a dark spot, I love helping my people. It fills me up. That's how I work. That's how I'm useful. So get out there and be useful, folks. Before we ended, any questions? Last 15 minutes? Comments? Tim, you're fucking off your rocker again. Perfect. Silence is gold. Or tech issues are. Can you chat? Can you type it? Because I can see the chat. Oh, your headset's a dick then. See, lack of usefulness. It's in everything. I appreciate you guys being on. Do you have
Do it
a
every
question?
week,
Was
man.
the question? Or a comment?
Oh, spoken well this week.
Keep running into it this week, man. Everybody wants to
Get
know
that.
why their life is upside down, and it's because they're chasing something that they can't even define. How do you measure something you don't even know what it is?
I like your talk though on happiness versus usefulness and purposeness. You know, it just makes way too much sense. And people don't realize that, you know, that sometimes it's your usefulness and your purpose. They forget that that's what defines you.
Well, I think there's a big push right now, and has been over probably the last 2 generations, of like men define themselves by their title, by their work, and then they get retired, and then in a month they die because they're depressed, right?
Mhm.
And the military guys, the veterans, they understand this too, because when you go from being in the military, number one reason that veterans get suicidal and depression is because they lose their purpose. They were doing something important, and now they're just, you know, fucking doing copies at Kinko's, and it's difficult. It's difficult for them because when you have such a stark contrast in purpose, and you lose it, men especially, we're defined by what we do, right?
Oh yeah.
Women
Yeah,
have the same
absolutely.
problem, but they have it in empty nester syndrome, right? They're defined by raising children, and then when the children are gone, they're like, I don't know what to define myself as, right? Where's my usefulness? I already created it. They're gone, right? So that's where that empty nester syndrome comes from. And so
Yeah.
this push to get away from that, while I think made with the good intentions, is actually more detrimental because it's placing the focus in the wrong area, right? I think what they thought was root cause was actually correlative, right? They thought that it's because you align your value to your title and your job and your usefulness, that's why you get depressed. It's like, no, it's because you lost it that you got depressed.
Yeah.
And it's like, just go find a new one. And it's hard because you've defined yourself as one thing for so long. But when you become flexible, pliable, ability to, like me, I get called a Boy Scout by all my friends because you have a question, I'll tell you, I've developed skill sets to be Johnny on the spot and at least get us from, you know, I might not be a master at it, but I can get us going, you know. My usefulness is found in my people, in my service. That's where my happiness is. When I'm not serving people, when I'm not talking with people, when I'm not shaking hands with people, that's when I get my darkest.
Yeah.
Matt and Tish have been there for it. I get to the darkest point because that's my service is where I define myself, how I help people, how I bring people up, how I pull their strengths out of them and find them in their darkness and being that beacon for them. Like that's where I thrive. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And so if I didn't have that, I have to realize I don't have it. Then I have to go take responsibility to go get it. And right, like I went and got my hair cut yesterday and I realized like I just need to sit down and bullshit with my hairstylist. Like listen to her bitch, have me bitch, like, and I felt better. Why? Because I helped her. I validated her thinking. I gave her some new feedback or whatever, right? She loved it.
Yeah.
So it's like that's a reciprocating relationship. I go in, I pay her, she gives me a haircut, I walk out feeling good. I walk out, she feels good. Like that's the way all relationships should be. Right? It isn't just the haircut. I could just go in there and be like, just cut my hair and don't say fucking nothing to me. And to be honest, people like that drive me fucking nuts because I just think you're rude. But I get it. I understand it. But then there wouldn't be that
Reciprocation.
There you go. Words. So yeah, so like that's why I enjoy going there because it does give me that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been going to the same hairstylist for 6 years. So I know her family. When we were doing the pandemic, I wanted to make sure she was taken care of. So I'd let her cut my hair at her house. So she had a newborn baby. I know her family's homeschool schedule. Like I became ingrained in that life because I wanted that relationship and I fostered that relationship on handshakes. And most people are afraid to do that. They just see people as workers. That's your job. It's like, cool. But they do that for a reason, right? That's their purpose. So let them serve their purpose and be there with them.
I would say, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say,
guess the headset found its purpose.
I don't know. It's all chopped into pieces right now, but I think a piece of it too, though, is in serving others, it's not always reciprocal, in a sense of sometimes you just give. That is the reciprocal, because in your giving to others, a smile, a nod of the head, a holding of the door, just to be nice to people, even if you're not really going to like engage in conversation, right? But you're spreading joy and niceness in the world. And it then comes back to you in a karmic way, so maybe that 2 seconds that it took you to smile at somebody or hold a door meant that you didn't end up, 10 minutes from now down the street in your car in an accident or some issue because the universe delayed you for those 2 minutes or 2 seconds or whatever it was, So sometimes, I know it's true for me of like, I work on it. I try to be the nice person. I try to smile. If the cashier is, trying to engage in conversation, I'll engage in conversation back, at least something, or, to help feed that betterness in the world. We could all be like, I don't want to talk to anybody because I'm just going to get my stuff done. And I got this and this and this and this, yeah, we're all in that same boat, but pull the hat up just a little bit, let your eyes be seen, let somebody, engage in that smile on you. Maybe they give you the smile that you didn't know you needed, that helped you at that minute when you're like curmudgeoning in your head and you're like, and somebody smiles and you're like, okay, all right, the world really is decent, so
the amount of mats that I come across that just want to be curmudgeons, that I just love pulling them out of their shell, is like my favorite thing in the fucking world.
Yeah.
Because I know I can see them from a mile away. They're just like, fucking get in, get it done. I don't want to talk to nobody. And I'm just like, excuse me, sir. All I say is, excuse me, sir. But because I use fucking manners, all of a sudden the day's better. They're like, faith restored in humanity, which is kind of sad that the bar's that low. But but
that's how we can make the world better.
Right? Is like, what is the reciprocation?
Yeah.
It's a calibration, right? Like I say all relationships are reciprocal, and people then hear, then I better get mine if I'm going to do the thing. Because that's no. What you gain is character.
Right.
I do things for my character. My character means more to me than your bad day.
Yeah.
So if my character says I need to use my manners, I'm going to use my manners regardless of how my day is going. I'm going to use my manners regardless of how you respond to those manners. I'm going to use those manners regardless of how you feel about it, because it has nothing to do with you. I am giving you me, showing my manners, because that's my character. Now, if I
Well,
hold
you
the
know-
door for a woman, because my character is honor a woman, hold the door for her, and she gets snippy with me, I just say, you're welcome, and I let her go about her day. Because here's the problem, is if she sounds like that, I know for a fact that she's being mistreated by men.
Yeah.
If I hold the door for a woman and she responds in negativity, that means she is allowing a lot of mistreatment from men in her life.
Something's transpired in her life and her history that has caused her to have the outlook she has on
So
it.
I will not double down on that and break my character by going, well, fuck you too, bitch, which I know a lot of guys do.
Oh yeah,
But what you've just done is you've allowed her to subvert your character,
sure.
which means you've just relinquished your sovereignty, because you said, my will is I'm going to be a good person. She says nothing or gets rude, and all of a sudden you're a bad person. You just relinquished your will on her because she was just like one statement in your whole day, like 1% of 1%, and now your character is broken. Then that's not your character. You're just pretending. I
Well,
refuse to give that power to anybody.
You need to recognize when you're in these moods and modes anyway.
Yeah.
When I was eyeball deep in debt and stuff with the fabrication and the performance business, and I'd have a hard day. Things didn't go right. Parts didn't show up. We didn't get the things manufactured we needed to. I would be driving home, and I lived, in a small rural town. But I knew, I'm like, I got to get myself out of this funk before I go see my family. Otherwise, I'm going to take my bad day out on them. I would pull into the local grocery store because there was a young girl, small, petite, tiny little thing that had this really soft, high-pitched voice. And she could change my mood in a heartbeat. And it didn't matter because I'd walk in, it would be torrential downpour outside. I knew I was in a bad mood. Walk in, grab what I need to grab, walk up to that register, and well, hi, how are you today? Isn't it a wonderful day? And I completely forgot about everything that was weighing me down. And I was like, you know what?
Because her infinite positivity
Yeah.
immediately counteracts all the negative. Because you can't,
Yeah.
like, that's the thing. Like, I was thinking about this the other day when I was at the grocery store. You would be surprised how much an excuse me and a smile changes an entire person's day.
Oh man. After the lockdowns and everything else and all that bullshit, the interactions with other human beings, once you got the people who were, where's your mask? Stay 6 feet away, got them the fuck out of the picture and just went back to being a cordial human being again and living by the golden rule.
Yeah.
It was just astonishing how much people needed that physical interaction with one another,
Oh yeah.
how much we missed that.
And it's simple stuff for me. Like if you're older than me, I let you go first. If you're a woman, I let you go first. No, please, after you. And it's with a smile. Like, I know a lot of people that are like, after you. Well, now it's begrudging, right? Like, people are receiving your energy. No, mine's like, no, please, after you. I apologize. Right?
Yeah.
The smile is what matters because it's the energy that I gave them. And instead of them being in the way, which is what they felt, now they're like, oh, like, I'm not in the way. He's okay with this.
Yeah.
And so when I say relationships are reciprocal, like, part of that reciprocation is you just gave me an opportunity to show my character.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to honor that opportunity by sticking to who I am, regardless of what you believe. So the reciprocation is, like Tish was saying, a lot of times it isn't like, oh, I'm going to be nice to you because I hope you're nice to me. No, I'm going to be nice to you. And the reciprocation is I get to be me. I get to be my core character. Regardless,
I feel better about myself.
Yeah. And if you have a bad day, I hope that me being in my character helps you.
Yeah.
Rather than me getting pulled down to your level and being negative with you. Like, F that, dude. And so she had asked before she left, and I'm gonna address it in case she rewatches the thing. But what are some ways people can be useful in the portal in life and service to others? Everybody's going to be different, right? Because we all have different skill sets. But use is the thing that makes you feel good, not indulgent behaviors, right? Like, you can drink and feel good, you can party and feel good, you can be promiscuous and feel good. That's not what I mean. I don't mean physically good. I mean emotionally and spiritually good, where you walk away going, like, feeling proud of yourself. And I know a lot of people that don't know how to feel proud for themselves anymore because they've had a really rough life or whatever. But if you listen for it, if you do something and you're just like, man, I'm just really proud of that, sit with it and enjoy it. But your usefulness, like in the portal, share your day. You want to be useful in the portal? Like, I don't give a shit if it's a good day, a bad day. You learn something new. You're sharing something that you already knew. You're asking a question that you're confused about, or you've always wondered. That's useful. Because humans are communicative. We are communal creatures. And so when we share everything like that, and I think this is where Instagram got it wrong. I think social media in general got it wrong, is they started to create lenses. You need to be perfect. You need to be this. You need to know everything. You have to be an authority, right? And then it became monetized. It became a business, which is why I struggle with getting heroes the visibility, right? Because I don't believe in it.
Same
Right.
reason my coaching struggled is I was like, I had a difficult time. Just, it was that one desire to help people, but how do I put a dollar amount on this?
Yeah. And
you and I
or
have
how
talked
do you,
about that.
I never had a problem with like the dollar amount. I had a problem with just constantly and consistently saying, this is who I am and this is what I know. Right? Like I don't script things well. I'm a conversationalist, and you're very much the same way, Matt. Like when somebody comes to me, how do you help them? Well, each person is going to be bespoke. I don't know how I can help them. I know I can help them.
Yeah.
But I just don't, like, we talk about this a lot too, is like from the business side of the house. And I'm just sharing behind the curtain a little bit with you guys in the portal. Like the mechanism of usefulness when it comes to social media is eyeballs. But what that has generated is manipulation. People don't maintain integrity, and they just share what's good for business. And I talk about this all the time. I share what I think is needed, not what is good for business. And that's why we don't do well in business a lot of times on the social media side of the house, because I share things that people need to hear and they don't want to hear it yet.
Right.
So we don't
The
get the
truth is hard.
we end up on lists and all this other stuff, right?
Truth's hard to swallow.
Right. And like today's call, like I know that if I said what I just said and I just put it out in the social media world, I get just flambéed, because people would just be so pissed off. I'd be called all the obics, right? Transphobic, homophobic. Like I'd get called all that. I'd get called a racist because of the comment I made about slavery. I'd be called a misogynist because, I'm basically saying feelings don't matter, right? Like anything that validates their shortcoming, I would get labeled, and that's their problem. That's why they will stay stuck. And it has nothing to do with the reality of the world, right? Just because you're soft doesn't mean that violence gives a shit. If violence finds you, the fact that you're soft will just make sure that there's only one outcome, right? Like that's the fact. You can argue it all you want. You can feel bad about it all you want, but that's a fact, right? And so social media has become this place where it's a way of making bad things okay. It's a way of making shortcomings something to be honored, right? Like I'm a big person on the etymology of words. Sovereignty in itself has been watered down and diluted. People don't understand what it means. Leader has been watered down and diluted. People don't understand what it means. Authority has been watered down and diluted. They don't understand what it means. King, queen, freedom, responsibility, like things that used to have weight and gravitas no longer have weight and gravitas by design. Because if you say those things, then you're somehow restricting somebody else, because it makes them feel uncomfortable because they know they're not up to par. But instead of taking responsibility and ownership and saying, oh shit, like he's right, I'm not up to par, I need somebody to validate that it's okay, right? The new one that I see a lot is neurodivergent, right? I'm a neurodivergent. I have ADHD, I have bipolar, I have this, I have that, right? Great. Those are your hurdles. How are you going to solve them? Now that you know that those are your hurdles, how are you going to solve them? Oh, I can't solve them. That's how I am. Okay. How are you going to solve them? Well, no, that's just the way I am. Okay, so when you're starving, is being bipolar a reason to not eat? When they're trying to take your children from you physically through violence, is being ADHD a reason to not protect your children? See, this is how I think. I think in extremes because that's what they're there for. When you don't act when it's arbitrary, you're less likely to act when it's necessary.
Yeah.
And that goes across the board. It goes across the board in training. It goes across the board in politics. It goes across the board. When you don't do what you know is right when it's arbitrary, you're not going to do it when it's necessary, because it's going to be 100 times harder.
Mhm.
And so when I talk about this stuff, to get back to the original topic, is like, how do you show your usefulness? First and foremost, stop worrying about everybody else. Worry about your character. How do you want to be perceived? What usefulness do you want to bring to the table? What do you want to be known for? I love being known as a Boy Scout with my friends. I love knowing that if they called me and asked me a question, the likelihood that I'll have some form of an answer is pretty high, and I'm willing to say I don't know, but within an hour I'd find out.
Yeah, you're like me. It's the common trait we have. We're problem solvers.
Yeah, because
I mean, flat out.
we
Everybody comes
promote
to the
our
answer.
own usefulness higher than anything.
Yeah.
And people want to tell us, because they don't want to be useful, that we're broken.
Hmm.
Well, your value shouldn't be in that. Why not?
Well, no one wants to take the effort anymore.
Well, I think the thing is, and this
Make
is just
the effort.
this
not
is
take,
this is
make
something
the
that
effort.
I've experienced with a lot of my coaching clients, and I've experienced just in general with society. Like, my biggest problem is that everybody presents themselves from a position of fear,
Mhm.
not courage. And what I mean by that, and why it's a core value for heroes, is like, if you don't do something, or you change your approach from fear that it will hurt when you fail, then you're a coward, because you're trying to hedge your bet. Courageous people, especially courageous men, they go for what is right, especially when they know it's going to suck, because that's the only way to do it.
Mhm.
Right? Like, and I use fire as an example, right? Because like gun debate, car fire, right? If you talk to people that are anti-gun, it's because people can get hurt with guns. But if you say, what about cars who kill 4 to 1 more people every year, all of a sudden it's okay. Fear. You don't understand one, you understand the other. Fear.
Mhm.
Okay, well then we have a story that if a child touches a hot stove, they never touch a hot stove again. Do we ban stoves because it hurts people? No. So where in that line of logic, gun, car, stove, are you breaking down and making exceptions to a rule that's exactly the same? Right? That's
Well,
why I say I go to the extremes. Like, if you're talking one extreme, but something that is less extreme has the same risk, but you're okay with it, why does it apply here? It should maintain the same logic. It should be the same logic across the board. We don't do that, because we start presenting our discussions from a position of fear.
right.
I say, hey, serve that girl, right? To male clients. Serve the girl. You're courting her, serve her, honor her. What if I get called a simp? Fear. What if she doesn't reciprocate? Fear. What if? Fear. Just stop talking to her. What do you mean? I like her. You don't deserve her. You're too much of a chicken shit. Because you're sitting there making it her problem that you're afraid of all these things that has nothing to do with her. Now, this is me talking to guys, right? Like, this is, but I'd say the same thing with girls. What if he cheats on me? Has he proven? Has he said he's going to cheat on? No, but most guys cheat. Then don't get with the guy.
Why is that? I hate that. It's always the guy that does that. Oh, what if he does this? What if he does that? What the fuck? What, you know what? What did you not do that caused him to do that? What?
Yeah.
Because they always, guys don't just wake up one day and go, yep, I'm going to go do this.
Well, there's a camp of thought that do.
There's a correlation that comes from, okay, maybe he's so good when it's someone they know. Okay, you know what I mean? Like it's
I
someone,
think
it's her
one thing
friend
we
or
should
something.
clarify is that when you and I talk about men, we talk about men in our realm, you and I, the way we
Yeah.
see the world. There are lower class men.
There are, but they're, you know,
but they shouldn't be.
There
It's
are
because
women
we've
you,
allowed them to exist, right? Like,
there are
society
women
has
you can
given
take out
them
of the
the
trailer
validation.
court. Can't take the trailer court out of the woman. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
I mean,
that's just it.
tit for tat, dude.
It's and this is why universal conversations are stupid. I'm going to end on this, right?
Okay.
The universal conversation is there's always an edge case. There's always an edge case. But it becomes a problem when you leverage the edge case to create a universal principle. Right? We used to just call that prejudice. Because you're prejudging the majority based on a single shitty example.
Yep.
Now, if you do it on race, it's a bad thing. But if you do it on sex, mannerisms, job, occupation, culture, religion,
Respect,
all of a sudden it's
anything.
okay.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, it should be bad across the board. You're prejudiced. You should be giving everybody the opportunity to prove you wrong, which means clean slate for each person, but be wary of it if you have experiences in the negative, right? Like for instance, for me, I got cheated on with my first person, and it broke me for a while with the way that I approached relationships because I didn't trust it. And it was because my value system was in her mistake. To your point, what did I do that made her cheat?
Yeah.
Right? The problem is that I can ask that question now without devaluing me. I can take responsibility for my actions. I wasn't around a lot because I was working all the time.
That's all I'm saying. You know,
But
it's
my
not always
value
a
wasn't
bad
less.
thing. It's like what
She didn't value her character enough. That shouldn't have been a reason to cheat in my mind. I was
No.
providing, I was paying, I was doing all these things. You shouldn't have cheated. I was not there because I was serving, right?
Mhm.
That's her mistake, not mine. Now, moving forward, how do I correct that? I correct that behavior by making that known ahead of time. Hey, if I'm gone and you need me, just say so. Don't fucking like go off. Just say so. Just be like, hey, you've been gone a lot. I just need you. But now with the way Instagram and social media is, and we're in this family conversation now talking about relationships, but the way that it is, everybody's so afraid of being labeled something when dating.
Yeah.
They don't want to be labeled clingy, a simp, whipped. They don't want to be labeled as crazy. They don't want to be labeled a bitch. They don't want to be labeled as a dick. That all these labels, right? It's like the wrong person will always find a label for you.
Oh yeah.
So why are you worried about that? Like, just be useful. Just serve. And then whatever happens after that, it's not on you because you serve to your character.
Yep.
So it's on them.
Yep.
So leave it with that. It was a great call. Appreciate you, Matt. I want to respect your time. I know we're a little over. If you guys have any questions, feel free to DM in the portal or make a post public and we'll go from there and we can answer all your questions. But I'll get this uploaded in the next couple of days. Hope you guys have a great one.
Sounds good. See you, bud.
Bye.